Sansa Stark had always dreamed of being a queen. She believed in songs of knights, romance, and golden crowns. When she got betrothed to Prince Joffrey, she thought her life was finally becoming like the fairy tales. But the dream started to break the day Bran fell from the tower. Sansa was no fool, not completely. She heard whispers in the Red Keep, servants muttering when they thought no one was listening. She noticed how Queen Cersei and her brother Jaime always looked at each other too long, stood too close, and spoke in low voices. At first, she pushed the thought away. It was too ugly to imagine. But then, one night, she saw it herself. She had gone looking for her direwolf's lost hair ribbon near the keep's quiet halls. And there in the shadows she saw them, Cersei and Jaime together. Not as brother and sister should be. Her heart froze. She almost screamed, but pressed her hand against her mouth. She ran back to her chamber shaking. The next morning she wanted to forget, to pretend she hadn't seen it. But when she looked at Joffrey, cruel and smug, a thought crept into her mind. If he is their son, then he has no right to the throne. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept remembering her father's words, "The truth is always important. Sansa, no matter how hard it is," and for the first time, she decided to tell him. The next morning she walked into Ned Stark's solar. He was sitting with papers and scrolls, looking tired, his hair messy. When he saw Sansa, he smiled softly, the way only a father could. "What troubles you, little one?" he asked. Sansa's hands shook, but she forced herself to speak. "Father, I know something. Something about the Queen. About Prince Joffrey, too." Ned frowned, setting down his quill. "What do you mean?" And so, with tears in her eyes and fear in her heart, Sansa told him everything. She told him about the whispers, the strange closeness, and finally, what she had seen with her own eyes. Ned went pale as snow. He stood, pacing the room, his face a storm of anger and dread. "Are you certain of this, Sansa? Do you know what this means?" Sansa nodded, though her voice cracked. "It's true, father. I swear it, Joffrey. He isn't the rightful heir. He's not Robert's son." For a long time there was silence. Ned Stark, the man of honor, the man of duty, now stood at a crossroads he never wanted. The truth was poison, but it was also the only weapon he had. He turned to his daughter, his voice low but steady. "You did right to tell me, Sansa. You may have saved us all." But even then, Sansa did not know. The choice she had made would change the fate of kings and kingdoms forever. Ned Stark did not sleep that night. He paced his chamber with the truth burning in his head. His daughter's frightened words echoed over and over, Cersei and Jaime, the Queen and her own brother. And if Sansa was right, then Robert Baratheon had been raising another man's children. And worse, his enemies. The next morning, Ned rode out to the Godswood, where the red leaves of the weirwood tree whispered in the soft breeze. He needed silence, away from the ears of Lannister spies. His honor told him to go straight to King Robert and speak the truth. But his father's heart whispered caution. The truth could destroy Sansa. If Cersei suspected his daughter had seen too much, the Queen would not hesitate to strike back. As he stood there, lost in thought, footsteps came. It was Lord Petyr Baelish, Littlefinger, smiling as always, eyes sharp like a cat's. "You look troubled, Lord Stark," Littlefinger said smoothly. "Secrets are heavy things. Perhaps too heavy for such a noble man to carry alone." Ned disliked him, but he was no fool. Littlefinger always seemed to know more than he should. "I have no patience for your games, Baelish." And yet Littlefinger tilted his head. "You'll need me when you decide what to do with the Queen's little secrets." Ned's jaw tightened. He said nothing, but that was enough for Baelish. The sly man grinned, like he had just stolen something valuable. That evening Ned returned to his solar and called for Sansa again. She came nervously, wringing her hands. He placed a hand on her shoulder, gentle but firm. "What you told me must never leave this room," he said. "Not even to your sister, not to your handmaidens, not even in your dreams. Do you understand?" "Yes, father," Sansa whispered, her eyes wide. "But what will happen now? Will Joffrey still be my prince?" Ned's face softened, but there was sorrow in his eyes. "You must forget that, child. He can never be your husband. You are a Stark of Winterfell. You will wed with honor, not with lies." Sansa's lips trembled, but she nodded. A part of her felt her dream breaking apart, but another part felt relief. She had told the truth, and her father had not been angry with her. The next days were tense. Ned began moving carefully, watching the Queen's every step, the way she smiled too sweetly, the way her brother lingered near her. He sent letters north to Winterfell, warning Catelyn to keep the children safe. He even wrote secretly to Stannis Baratheon, Robert's stern brother, hinting that he should come to King's Landing. But secrets in the capital never stayed hidden long. One night, as Sansa returned from a supper with the Queen, she felt a hand grip her arm in the hallway. It was Ser Sandor Clegane, the Hound. His scarred face loomed in the torchlight, his voice rough as gravel. "You ought to be careful, little bird," he muttered. "The lioness has sharper teeth than you think. She knows when someone's been watching her." Sansa's blood went cold. Did Cersei know? Did she suspect? She tried to speak, but no words came out. The Hound gave a grunt and let her go, but his warning stayed in her mind like a thorn. Meanwhile, Ned decided he could wait no longer. He went to speak with Robert, who was drunk as usual, surrounded by women and cups of wine. At first, Robert laughed at Ned's serious face, but when his old friend pressed harder, Robert grew restless. "Out with it, Ned!" Robert barked, slamming his cup down. "What is it that makes you look like a man carrying the weight of 7 kingdoms? Ned hesitated. For a moment, he thought of Sansa's frightened face, of the danger she had risked by telling him. But honor was stronger than fear. "It's about the Queen," Ned said finally, his voice low but steady. "Robert, Joffrey is not your son." "None of them are." The hall fell silent. Robert stared at him, then burst into angry laughter, thinking it a jest. But when he saw Ned's hard face, the laughter died. "What madness is this?" Robert growled, his face turning red. "I wish it were madness," Ned said. "But it's truth. The Queen's children are not yours. They are Jaime Lannister's." For a moment, Robert looked like he had been struck with a hammer. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. His eyes blazed with rage. He threw his cup across the room, shattering it against the wall. "By the gods!" he roared. "The bitch! The treacherous whore!" He staggered to his feet, grabbing Ned by the shoulders. "Tell me this is certain. Tell me this is no rumor." Ned met his eyes. "It is certain. I have it from one who saw them with her own eyes." Robert stared, breathing hard. And then, for the first time in years, King Robert Baratheon began to weep. Not soft tears, but broken, angry sobs of a man who realized his life had been built on a lie. Ned stood beside him, silent, knowing that the storm had only just begun. For if Robert now believed, then Cersei would soon be cornered. And when lions are cornered, they always strike back. The king did not sleep that night. Robert drank until dawn, pacing like a restless bull, smashing cups, cursing Cersei's name. Ned stayed with him, for he feared the man might do something rash in his drunken fury. By morning, Robert's eyes were bloodshot, but his rage had not cooled. It had only hardened into something more dangerous. "Summon the Queen," Robert growled, his voice rough. "Now, I'll hear it from her lips before I put her head on a spike." Ned hesitated. "Robert, this must be handled carefully. If you move too quickly, she may act first. She has her family here, guards loyal to her father. We must think of the realm." But Robert was not a man for caution. He slammed his fist on the table. "The realm has been living under a lie, Ned. My throne, my crown, my whole bloody name mocked. No, I will not hide this. Bring her to me." And so, before midday, the Queen entered the king's chambers, dressed in emerald silk, her golden hair shining like the sun. Jaime was not with her, but her eyes were sharp, wary, as if she already knew the storm waiting for her. Robert sat like a lion ready to pounce, gripping the hilt of his warhammer as though he wanted to swing it then and there. "Tell me, woman," Robert spat, his voice echoing in the hall. "Whose children are they? Mine or your brother's?" For a moment's silence, Cersei did not flinch. Her green eyes locked on Robert's, calm as still water. Then with the faintest smirk she answered, "You already know the answer." The hall gasped. Even the guards standing by the walls froze. Robert surged to his feet, the veins in his neck bulging. He raised his hand as if to strike her, But Cersei only looked at him, unafraid. "Go ahead," she said coldly. "Strike me, Robert. But know this, you can kill me, yet you cannot kill the truth. Your reign is already over." Robert's face twisted with fury. For a moment, Ned thought he would bring his warhammer down on her skull. But instead, with a roar, Robert hurled it across the room. It crashed against the stone wall, leaving a deep crack. "Get her out of my sight," Robert bellowed. "Lock her in her chambers. Let no one leave the castle. By nightfall, I want Jaime in chains." The queen was seized by guards. Still, she did not scream, did not beg. She walked out proud, her head held high, as if she knew the game was not finished. After she was gone, Robert sank into his chair, trembling with rage. "I should kill them all," he muttered. "Her, Jaime, every Lannister. By the gods, I should burn their name from the world." Ned placed a hand on his shoulder. "If you do that, you will start a war. Think of the kingdoms. Think of the North, the Riverlands, the Vale. The Lannisters are powerful, but they are not invincible. We must be wise, Robert. We must move with law, not with madness." Robert grunted, his face buried in his hands. "You always were the cautious one, Ned. Perhaps that is why you're still alive, and I'm nothing but a fat, drunk fool." Meanwhile, Sansa sat in her chamber, twisting her fingers until they hurt. She had not been told what happened, but she felt it. Something had changed. Servants whispered more than usual. The halls were tense. Even Joffrey seemed different, snapping at everyone, his face red with anger. When he looked at Sansa now, there was hatred in his eyes, as if he sensed she had betrayed him somehow. That evening, as she was preparing for bed, her door opened suddenly. It was Arya, her face flushed with excitement. "Sansa," Arya hissed, rushing inside. "The Queen's been locked up. Father's done something. Everyone's saying there's going to be fighting." Sansa gasped, her heart pounding. No, it can't be. "If there's war, Joffrey," she stopped. For the first time, she realized what this truly meant. If Joffrey was not the rightful heir, then she would never be queen. Her dream was gone, but worse than that, she feared what the Queen might do to her. Down in the dungeons, Jaime Lannister was brought in chains before the king that same night. The Kingslayer, proud and handsome even in shackles, smiled mockingly as he bowed. "My king," Jaime said smoothly, "I hear my sister has been accused of treason." "Surely you don't believe such ugly rumors?" Robert roared, leaping to his feet. "Rumors? Bastard-born golden children are rumors? Do not mock me, Kingslayer." Jaime only smirked. "If you truly think they are mine, then I must thank you for the compliment. But tell me, Robert, what will the realm say when their fat king admits he was cuckolded for years? How long before your lords start whispering of a weak stag unfit to rule?" The king's face turned purple. He lunged forward, but Ned held him back. "Don't," Ned said sharply. "Do not give him what he wants. He craves your anger," Robert panted, his fists shaking, but he stepped back. "Take him to the black cells," he ordered. "He'll rot there until I decide his fate." As Jaime was dragged away, his mocking laughter echoed through the hall. That night, Ned returned to his chambers, weary and heavy with dread. He knew what would come. The Lannisters would not sit quietly while their queen and her brother were held like prisoners. Tywin Lannister would march. The realm was already cracking, and this truth, though righteous, had lit the fire that would burn them all. And in her locked chamber, Cersei Lannister sat by the window, staring at the stars. She smiled faintly to herself, for she had already sent her ravens. War was coming, and she would not be the one in chains for long. The Red Keep felt like a cage full of wolves. Guards patrolled every corner, whispering servants carried nervous looks, and the great lords of the court began packing their belongings quietly. The air smelled of fear and steel. Word spread fast, as it always did in King's Landing. The Queen locked in her chambers, the Kingslayer thrown in the dungeons, the king himself raging like a storm. The realm would not stay calm for long. Ned Stark knew this. He spent hours writing letters, sending ravens north, warning Winterfell of the storm to come. He even sent a secret note to Lord Stannis on Dragonstone, urging him to claim his place as Robert's true heir. But with every letter he sealed, he wondered if it was already too late. Meanwhile, Robert drank more than ever. His fury came and went in waves. Sometimes he wanted to kill every Lannister in sight. Sometimes he sat silent, head in his hands. Broken by the betrayal, Ned stood by him, steady as stone, though inside he felt unease. He had forced the truth into light, but truth was not enough to keep peace. Truth rarely was. Sansa lived in a nightmare. She could not step into the hall without feeling Joffrey's eyes burn into her. Once as they passed in the corridor, he leaned close and whispered, "I know it was you." She froze, staring at him, but he only smirked and walked away. Her heart pounded until her knees shook. She had told herself she had saved her family, done the right thing. But now she feared she had only doomed herself. Arya, of course, was thrilled by the chaos. "Father will win," she told Sansa boldly one night. "The Queen is evil. If there's a war, I'll fight too." Sansa shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "You don't understand, Arya. If war comes, we all lose." Far away at Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister received the raven from his daughter. He read the words once, then again, his golden eyes narrowing. His daughter imprisoned, his son shamed, his grandchildren declared bastards. For a moment the great lord said nothing. Then, calm as ever, he ordered his bannermen called. "Summon every sword! We march on the Riverlands at once. If they want war, they shall have it." Back in King's Landing, Cersei wasted no time in spinning her own web. Locked in her chamber, she was not idle. Through her loyal maids and guards, she sent messages, promised gold, whispered promises of power to men hungry enough to betray their oaths. One by one, she turned some of the king's own household guards to her side. Even in chains, she commanded more loyalty than Robert. At night she whispered to her youngest son Tommen, soothing him with soft words, while Myrcella sat quietly by her side. Joffrey stormed and cursed, demanding to be released, but Cersei hushed him. "Patience, my lion," she said. "This cage cannot hold us for long." Ned began to sense her moves. Spies carried him word that gold was changing hands, that whispers of betrayal floated in the corridors. He warned Robert, but the king only roared, "Let her try. I'll gut every Lannister myself if I must." But Ned knew better. War was not won by shouting. War was won by patience, by planning, by the quiet strokes made in the shadows. And in shadows, the Lannisters thrived. One evening, Sansa was summoned to her father's chamber. She entered with fear, but Ned's face was softer than she expected. "You did a hard thing," he said gently. "You told me the truth. It has cost us dearly, but it was the right thing." Sansa bit her lip. "If it was right, father, then why does everything feel wrong?" Ned sighed. "Because truth is often crueler than lies. But lies cannot build a future. Remember that, Sansa?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that her broken dream had meaning. But outside, the city rattled with tension, and she felt none of it would end well. Then came the blow. 2 days later, a raven reached the Red Keep. Tywin's host had crossed into the Riverlands, burning villages and slaughtering peasants in their path. The small council was called in haste. Robert stormed into the chamber, slamming the letter on the table. "The lion bares his teeth," he roared. "He dares to strike at my lords while his whore of a daughter sits locked in my castle. By the gods, I'll smash him myself." Littlefinger, always calm, leaned back in his chair. "And what of your children, Robert? Will you put them to the sword as well? The people love their golden prince. Declare him a bastard, and you may find the realm loves you less." Robert cursed and nearly drew his dagger on him, but Ned stepped forward. "Enough of this. The Lannisters must be checked, or they'll grow bolder. Send for your banners, Robert. March your host. The time for drinking is over." The king's eyes blazed. For once he looked like the warrior of old. He slammed his fist on the table. "Aye, Ned, let's end this. I'll call the banners. I'll march north, south, east. Every stag, wolf, and fish shall rise. And I'll crush Tywin under my heel." The council dissolved in chaos. Some lords looked eager for war, others pale with fear. But Ned knew what this meant. The realm would bleed. That night, as the city prepared for battle, Cersei smiled behind her locked doors. She had expected Robert's anger. She had counted on it. For every move Robert made, Tywin had already prepared his answer, and in the dark, Sansa Stark lay awake, whispering a prayer to the old gods. She had wanted to be a queen, but now she only wanted to survive. The city of King's Landing changed overnight. Drums beat in the streets as criers shouted that the king was calling his banners. Blacksmiths worked without rest, forging swords and armor, while ships were readied at the harbor to carry messages and supplies. The smell of smoke and steel filled the air, and the small folk whispered that war was coming. Robert Baratheon, once a man drowning in wine, came alive again. His chest swelled with purpose as he shouted orders, and for the first time in years he looked like the warrior who had taken the throne with his hammer. He drank still, but now his eyes burned with rage and fire. But Cersei was no less dangerous, locked away. Her webs stretched across the Red Keep like invisible threads. Gold passed from her hidden coffers into the hands of sellswords. Letters flew from the castle through hidden tunnels. Even in chains, the queen was never powerless. Ned Stark knew this. He doubled the guard around her chambers, posted men he trusted from the north, and forbade her from seeing her children without his leave. But Cersei was patient. Patience was her weapon. For Sansa, every day felt like walking on a blade. Joffrey's glares cut her like knives. Once when they passed in the courtyard, he leaned close enough for only her to hear, "My mother will be free. My uncle will be free. And when they are, I'll see your pretty head on a spike." Sansa froze, her breath catching, but she didn't answer. She hurried away, her heart pounding so loud she thought the whole castle could hear it. She wanted to tell her father, but some small voice held her back. She had been the one to open this wound. She had been the one to bring truth into light. If Robert and her father failed, she would be blamed. And Joffrey would make sure her punishment was cruel. Far away, at Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister's army grew larger by the day. Thousands of soldiers marched under his banner, their armor shining like gold, their swords hungry for blood. Villages in the riverlands burned, rivers ran red, and refugees poured into every castle that would take them. Lord Tywin wrote back to his daughter with cold words. "Hold fast. The stag will tire. The wolf will bleed. When the time is right, the lion will roar." Back in King's Landing, the small council argued until their voices grew hoarse. Littlefinger suggested peace talks. Varys whispered about spies. Renly Baratheon, Robert's younger brother, demanded swift action, claiming the throne must be secured before rumors spread further. But Robert's fury drowned them all. Peace with lions? Never. "They mocked me in my own bed. I'll answer with fire and steel." Ned tried to hold him steady. "You must think of succession. Stannis is your rightful heir. You must name him before the lords rally to Renly or—" Robert slammed his hand on the table. "Enough of your cold counsel, Ned. I will not die yet, so do not speak of heirs." The council ended with no plan, only more shouting. Ned felt the ground slipping beneath him. That evening, as the sun set in blood-red sky, Sansa wandered into the godswood of the Red Keep. She sat beneath the heart tree, weeping quietly, when she heard footsteps. It was Sandor Clegane, the Hound. He stood over her, his face shadowed, his voice gruff. "Little bird, you'd better stop crying where people can see. Lions smell weakness." Sansa wiped her eyes quickly, ashamed. "Why do you always call me that?" "Little bird?" The Hound gave a bitter laugh. "Because you're too soft for this city. You sing sweet songs and dream of love, but this place will tear you apart. You'll either learn to bite, or you'll be eaten." His words chilled her, but she understood. She had flown too close to truth, and now the claws of lions and stags and wolves all reached for her. Meanwhile, Cersei finally made her first strike. One night, a fire broke out in the stables near the Red Keep. While guards rushed to put it out, a group of sellswords tried to smuggle her youngest children from the castle. They were caught before they reached the gates, but the message was clear. The queen still had teeth. Robert raged, demanding their immediate execution. Ned convinced him to show restraint. For killing children, even Lannister children, would lose him half the realm. But restraint only bought them time. The next morning, another raven came. Tywin had split his host. One army, led by Sir Gregor Clegane, the mountain, was burning through the riverlands like wildfire. The other, larger host marched east, straight toward King's Landing. The small council panicked. Varys whispered of riots in the city if food ran short. Renly urged Robert to march at once. Littlefinger, always smiling, said, "Perhaps the time has come for mercy. Release the queen, and maybe the lion will purr instead of roar." Robert nearly struck him. "I'll give them mercy at the end of a sword." But Ned saw what no one else dared admit. The war was no longer coming. It was already here. That night he went again to Sansa. He sat beside her, his face lined with worry, and spoke softly. "You must be strong, Sansa. What comes next will not be like the songs you love. War is cruel. It spares no one." She looked at him, tears welling in her eyes. "Father, did I do this?" "By telling you? Did I bring this war?" Ned's heart broke at her words. He pulled her close and held her tight. "No, child. You did not bring this war. The Lannisters did. The truth only showed what was already there. Never blame yourself for speaking what is right." But deep inside, Sansa was not certain. Deep inside, she wondered if her truth had lit the fire that would consume them all. And as the bells of the city rang that night, warning of enemy movements near the river, she whispered a prayer to the gods. "Please, let us survive what comes." The bells of King's Landing tolled heavy and loud, their echoes rolling across the city like thunder. From the walls of the Red Keep, smoke could already be seen rising in the distance. Villages burning, farms destroyed. Tywin Lannister's host had drawn near. Inside the castle, the halls throbbed with tension. Men shouted orders, guards scrambled in armor, and servants whispered of doom. The people of the city, starved and frightened, began to riot in the streets, smashing bakeries and looting markets. Robert Baratheon stood in the throne room, his warhammer resting against the Iron Throne. He was drunk again, but his eyes burned like coals. "Let them come," he bellowed. "I'll break them the same way I broke Rhaegar." But Ned Stark, standing beside him, saw the truth. Robert was no longer the man he once was. The rage was there, but not the strength. His belly was soft, his breath heavy. If this city was to survive, it would not be because of Robert's hammer. It would be because of strategy, of choices made in silence. Meanwhile, Cersei's chamber doors finally opened. She was released, not in freedom but in calculation. Robert had been convinced by Littlefinger's sly tongue that keeping her locked away would only make things worse. Better to let her walk the castle under guard, where she could be seen and controlled. When she emerged, dressed in deep crimson, her green eyes glinted with triumph. She walked past Ned without a word, her smile sharp as a blade. The lioness was loose again, and everyone knew it. Sansa watched all of this with dread. She had tried to stay quiet, to keep her head down, but whispers followed her everywhere. Some said the king's sudden fury against the queen began with her. Some said she had betrayed Joffrey. Servants looked at her with suspicion, and even Arya began asking questions Sansa could not answer. One evening, while she walked in the garden, Joffrey appeared, his face twisted with hatred. He seized her arm so hard it bruised. "You think you've won, don't you?" he hissed. "But my mother will crush you. My grandfather is coming, and when he does, I'll see you dragged through the streets naked before they cut your throat." Sansa trembled, but she remembered the hound's words. Learn to bite or be eaten. So she lifted her chin, though her voice shook. "If you kill me, Joffrey, the North will never forgive you. My family will see you burn." For the first time, she saw him falter. His lips curled, but he released her arm. "We'll see, little bird," he muttered before storming off. That same night, the council gathered once more. Ravens had come. The Lannister host was camped less than 2 days away. The Riverlands were in flames, and Renly Baratheon had fled the city with his knights, whispering he would gather allies of his own. Robert slammed his fist on the table. "Cowardly brother! Let him run! I'll meet Tywin myself. Ned, you'll command the vanguard." But before Ned could answer, Varys stepped forward, his voice soft but cutting. "My king, forgive me, but if you march out, who will protect the city? The people starve. Riots grow worse each day. If you leave, the capital may fall before a single sword strikes from outside." The room fell silent. Robert's fury dimmed, and he slumped back into his chair. For all his roaring, the truth was plain. He was trapped, and in that silence, Cersei spoke, calm, cold. "If you wish to survive, you must make peace with House Lannister. Free my brother. A marriage alliance will heal this wound. Let Sansa Stark wed Joffrey as planned, and the realm will forget these ugly lies." Sansa's heart stopped. All eyes turned to her. She wanted to scream, to run, but her voice failed her. Robert's face darkened. He spat on the floor. "Wed your bastard son to Ned's daughter? After what you've done? I'd sooner—" But Cersei cut him off. "Sooner what? Starve? Lose your throne? Watch your city burn?" Her words hung like a blade in the air. Ned clenched his fists, his voice iron. "There will be no marriage. My daughter will not be given to a false king born of incest. This war was made by your sins, Cersei. Do not think to bind us with more lies." Cersei's smile faded, but her eyes still glowed with venom. "Then you have chosen war, Lord Stark, and war is what you shall have." The council broke apart in chaos. That night the city shook with violence. Fires burned in Flea Bottom, mobs clashed with guards, and screams filled the streets. From the walls, torches of the Lannister army flickered like stars on the horizon. In her chamber, Sansa lay awake, listening to the distant drums of war. She clutched her blanket, her heart aching. She had told the truth, yes, but what had it brought? Blood, fire, fear. Arya crept into her room, clutching needle in her hands. "If they come, I'll protect you," Arya whispered fiercely. Sansa hugged her little sister, tears spilling down her face. "No, Arya. If they come, we must protect each other." Outside, the bells tolled again, louder than before, and the great drums of the Lannisters answered in the night. The war had come to King's Landing.